All right, so good morning and thank you for joining us today for the Titan Minerals Investor Webinar. I'm Jane Morgan, Investor and Media Relations Manager, and today I am joined by our CEO, Mel Leighton. So we're running through the company presentation, which you can see on your screen, followed by a Q&A session. So to ask a question throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Mel, I'll hand to you.
Thanks, Jane. It's great to be here and to be able to give everyone an update on, I guess, some pretty exciting developments and activities at our Dynasty Gold Project. So, I guess just to facilitate the session, I'll just share a couple of slides of the latest results. I guess just initially as an overview, probably most people are already familiar with the Dynasty Gold Project, but for those that are not, just an overview of the current resources. So currently we have the 3.1 million ounces of gold and 22 million ounces of silver, and the gold grade's a little over 2.2 grams per tonne gold, 15.7 grams per tonne silver for the silver resource. It's contained within a 9-kilometre epithermal gold system. And we believe that there's, really strong potential to grow that to plus 5 million ounces. And really that's what we're targeting with our current resource growth drilling program. So we're targeting both lateral and depth extensions at the Dynasty project, with the bulk of our drilling, so the 10,000 metres of drilling that we're doing right now, is focused at the Cerro Verde and Iguana prospects. So we believe there's good potential to grow the resources, particularly below about 200 metres vertical. There's very limited drilling in those areas, and the resource itself and mineralisation itself is actually open at depth, and it's a good opportunity to grow resources in that part of the project in particular. Zooming in on the latest results and where we've been focused. So we're looking at the Cerro Verde prospect on the right here. We've got the geology underneath. So in the green, we can see the andesite and the volcanics. The pale pink is where we're getting the diorite intrusions and the breccia, zones of mineralization. And in particular, you can see that box with new results there. That's largely where we've been focused on our drilling. I'll just change to a pointer here. This is the area where we've largely been focused on drilling of late, and very pleasingly, we've drilled 11 holes for 3,700 metres there, and pleasingly the first 3 holes were received and we released the results last week. Friday, not a great day in the market, unfortunately, but we believe it's really exciting news for us to have delivered some substantial both lateral and depth extensions from drilling in this area. And in particular, we note that the mineralisation is more associated with, the diorite intrusion, the breccia zones, and northwest fault corridor, which sort of trends through this area here. So what we're seeing in these latest results is wider and higher grade mineralisation than probably what we see typically in the vein and volcanic hosted mineralisation in other parts of the project. So the results themselves, 17.5 metres at 2.5 grams gold, 8.6 grams silver, which also included a higher grade intersection of 5 metres at 5.5 grams gold, 10.7 grams silver. So that was delivered from 374 metres down hole. But what it did demonstrate is that we've been able to grow resources. The intersections over here, by the way. We were able to grow resources by about 150 metres vertically below previous resources in that part of the project. And also of interest is that it's located about 220 metres away from a previous historical significant intersection, which sits down here, of 16.3 metres at 5.7 grams gold, 11.9 grams silver. And I guess what that tells us at this, northwest corridor here is very fertile and very well mineralized, and there's a lot of opportunity for, I've put this dashed open polygon or ellipse here, but in fact it also trends this way in the northwest corridor as well. So, a great, result for us. And the other really exciting result was very, shallow in the hole. It's actually up here. We got 2.9 metres at 21.9 grams gold, 10.4 grams silver from 18 metres down hole. So, that's previously the drilling was here, the furthest east drilling, and now we've been able to demonstrate even further across the mineralisation here. So that's an extension of about 80 metres to the east at the Breccia Comanche prospect there with that shallow hit. And just looking at it in cross section, so the same significant intercepts are annotated on this plan. And the shallow intersection I was referring to is actually up here in CVD 25122, and the deeper intersections, as you can see, really quite wide and high grade mineralization returned, from about 300 meters vertical, but effectively extending that previous, indicated and then inferred resources, quite a bit deeper at depth. And I guess what I also draw your attention to is that there's about a 220 meter gap here where we have no drilling. We do have one drill hole that we've completed and the assays are still pending here. So I guess an important area for us to check. But there's a large 220 meter gap between, this hole and this significant intersection of, 5 meters at 5.5 grams and this up dip intersection of 16.3 meters at 5.7 grams gold. So a lot of opportunity to define further high grade and wide mineralization, both up dip and also down dip here. So this hole we completed CVD 24121. We also had significant mineralization in 3 intercepts in the hole here, which is great for the resource. Will improve, I guess, confidence and classification, and also extend the resource at depth. But what I do note is we've probably pulled up that hole a little bit too early. So what we'll do is go back and re-enter this hole, and we'd like to be able to define this mineralization further down dip in that hole as well. So good opportunity to definitely grow the resources in this area, and it's completely untested. We are working towards a resource update in mid-2025, and that's very much on track. So as we do this drilling and we receive the results, we're very much working on the 3D geological model and working sort of hand in glove with the resource consultant as well in terms of, expediting all of those lead time items as part of the resource update that we're working towards. And so that's largely it for Dynasty in terms of the update there. I guess the only other thing to mention for Dynasty is that we have got some metallurgical test work in train. We recently announced the oxide test work where we were seeing very good recoveries of, mid to high 80% recovery for gold, which we believe is very pleasing for this style of mineralization at this project. And what we have got underway is the sulfide or the fresh metallurgical test work for Dynasty, and we'll be hoping to release those results in the coming 1 to 2 weeks, which I think will be a great de-risking for the project. Linderos itself, while I haven't put out an announcement specifically on Linderos, I intend on announcing within the next few weeks some results from Linderos. I've just received a data pack from the Hancock or the Hanrine exploration team in country, and I'm due to have a joint venture committee meeting with them tomorrow, at which point I'll have a really good understanding as to progress at the project and what is also planned for the forthcoming quarter as well. So it will be great, obviously, for myself to get an update on that, but also to be able to get some news out to the market on that as well in the coming few weeks. And just to reiterate, 2025 is actually it's a very busy year for us, and you've probably seen from, I guess, the activity in terms of the announcements. We've got 3 drill rigs firing on all cylinders at Dynasty as part of the resource growth program, which we intend to have completed by either late this month or at this rate probably into April. We've had some slight delays with fairly heavy rainfall over the last few weeks in Ecuador, which has slowed down our operations just slightly. So the drilling is almost complete. The resource update, like I said, still on track for mid-2025. My only disclaimer to that would be, if we're seeing really good success in these extensional areas, particularly at Serra Verde, we would be, I guess, a little bit silly not to chase those up and take the opportunity right now, considering, the funding that we do have in place to do that drilling, and also the support that we have from our major shareholders, Tribeca being a major shareholder, and, they're very, I guess, supportive of us getting on and doing the work that needs to be done at Dynasty to, I guess, realise the project's full potential at this point in time. So that's certainly what we're working towards at Dynasty. As I said, our copper projects, Linderos is taking care of itself. The fully funded exploration programs are being managed by Hanrine, and we are expecting results very soon from that. Copper Duke, again, once we finish the drilling at Dynasty, the intent is that we would send our team out there mid this year to get some scout drilling underway at Copper Duke. We've got some very exciting drill targets there. And Copperfield, a project that we don't talk about very much, but it is very much one of our exciting copper projects in Ecuador, where we are soon to get an aeromagnetic survey underway. So it'll be really, I guess, exciting to build those first principles data sets for Copperfield, where we haven't really done a lot of work there in the past. And again, this is a slide that's been released previously, but just to talk to it a little bit, I guess our current market cap sitting at around, $100 million Australian really gives us, if we think about the EV of the gold resources, it's about $22 US an ounce. That's, I guess, the valuation at this point in time for the Dynasty resources. It gives no value to the silver resources at Dynasty, which clearly are, 22 million ounces of silver is a pretty big resource in its own right. The discovery cost at Dynasty has been, it's a fairly low cost ore body to explore. The fact that it extends to surface and we have a good understanding of, mineralization controls and extents there means that, we're paying about $5 an ounce to date for gold discovered at Dynasty. And I guess just to point out the Dynasty resource itself, when we put it out in July 23, gold price was sitting at around US $1,900 an ounce. And, we're almost $1,000, higher than that now in terms of the gold price. But if you look at our share price, we've sort of just been tracking to the right. And, we haven't really seen that uplift in, I guess, our valuation. But what I do note is that we're getting, really quite, I guess, improved liquidity in our stock. If you look to the right, sort of from September, last year onwards. And we are seeing, far greater inbound interest from, both sophisticated investors and institutional funds. And I think the delivery of, the resource update itself, but particularly the results of the MET test work, I think that will be, key for a lot of those groups. And I think that we'll certainly be in the crosshairs for a number of those institutional investors once we release those results. So watch this space, I would say. And again, no value ascribed to the Hancock prospecting agreement, which, circa $180 million Australian valuation for 80% of that project. It's pretty clear to see the disconnect there. And I guess, obviously, like I said, 2025, very busy year for us and a lot of, value to be delivered and exciting milestones to be achieved for us this year and our technical team. Exciting year ahead. And I guess that concludes my presentation. And I believe at this point we will do some Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. And webinar attendees, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen if you've got questions for Mel. Let me jump into it now. So Titan's been making some big moves lately. Can you walk us through the company's growth strategy and how we're positioning Titan to take advantage of today's gold and copper market?
Well, I think I probably summarised most of that in my presentation just then, Jane. But I guess the growth aspirations really are currently underway with our resource, drilling right now, looking to expand that resource from, 3.1 million ounces up to the sort of 3.5 to 4 million ounce mark. I can't put a number on the resource update that's going to be out mid this year. But certainly we'd be looking for something meaningful in terms of that resource update. And the copper projects, I mean, clearly the environment for copper is improving, I think, and the sentiment, and there's always going to be that demand for copper as part of the green sort of revolution. So, very pleasing to have Hancock as that partner and to be spending their money, developing our copper project.
Mel, you actually just touched on this in your answer now, but so the Dynasty Gold Project already has a significant resource, and we do have those ambitious targets that you did speak about. So what is the further game plan for getting that to the new goal?
Well, the game plan, again, we're probably talking about the same thing again, but it really is around drilling and really well targeted drilling. Initially we're targeting, relatively near, 80 to 160 meter sort of resource extensions lateral and at depth, so quite close to what we know in terms of resources. The next phase of that would be targeting some more of our, we've got a number of exciting exploration, targets at Dynasty that sit, well beyond currently defined resources. So the intent is once we finish the 10,000 meters of resource drilling, we'll get onto a 5,000 plus meter program of exploration drilling at Dynasty as well to test some of these new targets. And some of those targets are gold. And we also do have copper porphyry targets at Dynasty as well, which I think are pretty exciting.
Thank you, Mel. Sorry, there's quite a few coming through, so I'm jumping around a little bit
Oh,
here.
okay.
Okay, so next one, recent intercepts, obviously at Brescia, Comanche, are looking strong. This webinar attendee just asked, so what does that mean for the overall economics of the project?
Well, what it means is that, well, from the optimization work that we did, an open pit wanted to optimize down to about 300 meters vertical at Breccia Comanche already at that mineralization to the west. So what this will do was we'll sort of bring out the base of that pit further to the east, and we'll want to sort of take more of that mineralization that we're, currently defining. So I think it will, feature in an ultimate pit optimization and an ultimate reserve, this mineralization that we're defining. And I think also there certainly is opportunity to, go from that open pit to an underground scenario if we can maintain these types of widths and grades, below that kind of 300 meter vertical mark.
Thank you, Mel. A couple of questions just on the deal with Hancock. This question in particular is just asking if you can break down how the partnership works and what it actually means for Titan.
Well, the partnership works the way that it works currently, and until Hancock earn their 80%, is that they will be managing and fully funding all of the exploration and development work programs. It's a staged earning agreement, so they've already earned their initial 5% for the US $2 million upfront cash payment. The current 10,000 meter drilling program will earn them an additional 25%, so that will get them to 30%. And then following that, there's an additional 15,000 meters of drilling that will get them to 51% ownership. And, my conversations with them and my understanding from their strategy is that, the Linderos project features quite heavily in their, aspirations to be a large-scale copper miner in Ecuador. So, they're not mucking around. They've obviously got plenty of cash themselves. They're getting on with the work and the drilling, and I believe that they will have earned their 51% and done their 25,000 meters of drilling probably by, if not the end of this year, sort of into Q1 next year. I think that we'll be at that point with them. And what it means for us is that we're free carried. We still retain 20% of what could be really quite a large scale copper porphyry project that goes ahead, and we've got a big brother to assist with funding all of that. Or a big sister.
Yeah. Just further on that then. So this webinar attendees just asked, has anything happened in terms of regulations or politically which bode well for the Ecuadorian projects?
I think the main thing is the current president, Noboa, has been very firm and very vocal about, his desires to, promote the mining industry in Ecuador and to support the mining industry in Ecuador, both at a regulatory level, and permitting, but also fast tracking that permitting. So no, we've had very good support at all levels, and we've been in country for sort of 4 to 5 years now and forged really strong relationships with all, levels of government, local, state, federal. There is an election process ongoing at this point in time, and President Noboa and one other candidate will be going for a runoff election in the next few months. I guess the point to make there is that although we'd love Noboa to win that election and to retain some a constant in terms of the government and ministerial bodies that are governing the mining at this point in time. But if it does swing the other way and the other candidate does get in, they're a slightly leftist candidate. I guess the good thing about that is Lundin and their Fruta del Norte operation, they actually got all of their permits and all requirements passed under the rule of a leftist government. So I think it doesn't really matter which way it swings for this particular election. I think we'll still see good support going forward. And we're lucky at our projects, just to make the point that, at Dynasty and Linderos in particular, there's actually no Indigenous communities and no environmentally sensitive areas or no environmentally sensitive flora or fauna. And we do have good access to water. The Catamayo River runs just to the south of all of our projects, within about 2 kilometres, and there's very strong flow through that river, and our back of the envelope calculations or estimations look like there's ample water there for our projects, which I think is probably one of the things that has potentially held back other projects in Latin America. But no, we've certainly got the water there in place.
Thank you, Mel. A couple of questions just here on cash and bank. So what is the current funding available to the company?
Well, I mean, I can only really speak to what's public at this point in time in terms of our last quarter, but our cash balance at the end of Q4 24 was about a little over 18, close to $19 million Australian. So obviously we're drilling, so there's a bit of a burn associated with that. But I would also note that we've had options converted, which sort of brought in an extra $3.54 million Aussie as well. And currently we're only funding the Dynasty project. We're not spending very much money at our other copper projects at this point in time. So being pretty, I guess, not frugal, that's probably not the right word, but quite conservative with the way that we spend our money, and certainly watching every dollar that we spend and making sure that we put the drill holes in the right spot. So no, I think we've certainly got funding in place to see us through to the end of this year in terms of all of the drilling that we want to do at Dynasty and potentially at Copper Duke as well, and all of the de-risking, scoping study items and resource update as well. So all funding in place for the year ahead.
Thank you, Mel. Again, jumping around a little bit here. There's two questions from this attendee. So what is the downhole pink zones on the chart? Are they gold zones over a certain grade? And then further to that, based on the drilling to date, conservatively, what is the outline looking for a pit in this 9-kilometre zone? So what depth?
Oh, okay, let me answer the first question first. I believe what you're referring to is the drill trace, and there's the magenta sort of histogram to the right. That is gold grades, which are projected as a histogram on the drill trace. So that's just to really highlight the mineralized zones on the drill hole. And just then ask me that second question again. Sorry, Jane.
So yeah, that's okay. Sorry, it was a bit of a long one. Just on drilling to date, and obviously conservatively, what is the outline looking for a pit in this 9-kilometre zone, and to what depth?
Yeah, so I think there'll be multiple pits. It won't just be one large open pit at this point in time, because clearly there's large parts of the project that we haven't yet drilled and haven't defined resources at. But with the current, I guess, definition of resources, there would be really quite a large open pit at the Cerro Verde area, and it does look to want to optimise down to about 300 metres vertical. So it would be potentially up to sort of 1.5, 2 kilometres in diameter. And then down to sort of 300 metres at its maximum, or 350 metres at its maximum depth for Cerro Verde. Iguana, being a slightly different shape of mineralisation, would be a more elongate pit, but again, looking to be about 2 kilometres long, and then maybe down to about 250 metres at its maximum depth at this point in time with the resources that are currently defined. And the optimization work that we did, again, which was after the previous resource, showed that there was good opportunity to go to an underground scenario following the open pit mining and use a long hole stoping method for extracting deeper ore. But also what I would note is that topographically there's undulation at the project, but we can use that to our advantage, and potentially add it into the side of hills to reach deeper mineralization in some areas, which would save us from developing a lot of capital development in terms of an underground drive that's required. So many ways to skin a cat, I think, at Dynasty in the way that we optimize the mining and the scheduling.
Thank you, Mel. Look, I think that covers all the questions that we've got. And I know you did cover this in the actual presentation itself, but for investors that are tuning in, let's run through key milestones for the next sort of 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, very, very busy time for myself and for the team at Dynasty and at Linderos. So I guess key milestones is delivery of drill results as we progress through the resource drilling program over the coming month to two. The resource update is targeted for mid this year. The de-risking study, so the metallurgical test work for Dynasty fresh mineralisation, should be due within the coming couple of weeks. And then I guess Outside of that, we've got a number of the de-risking studies as a part of the scoping study that are already underway. So some of those lead time items that are somewhat independent of the resource update, I've got underway in terms of, TSF, infrastructure layout options and baseline studies and things like that, and that will feed into a scoping study due towards the end of this year for Dynasty. And then copper projects, like I said, good news to come from that. And fortunately, we're not having to spend any money on that, but we get the advantage of the good news from those projects.
Thank you, Mel. Sorry, there's just another one that's popped up here. Obviously, the share price, and you did touch on this in your presentation, the gold price at the moment is at all-time high. So I think just asking a little bit of an opinion on where you sort of see the disconnect between share price and the gold.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, Titan, we're not alone. So I think that there's still, we saw great support and buoyancy in the market sort of late last year, September, sort of October last year. Then there was the Trump election, so a lot of uncertainty then prior to the election. And then now that he has been elected, clearly there's some quite, swinging, policies that he's sort of putting in place that's creating a lot of uncertainty in the market. So I think that certainty is with gold producers right now, and they are certainly seeing, good attention and good price appreciation, which makes sense. They're producing gold at these all-time high prices. And I think that we're sort of starting to see, some of that money come back out of those, those top 7 stocks in the US that have been sort of controlling the market and holding so much of the market. So I think it's only a matter of time until we see some of those funds start to flow down to more of the developers and the explorers in the gold space. So yeah, I don't think that Titan is alone here. I sit on the board of Great Boulder Resources as well, and they are also struggling a little bit with the share price despite delivering a significant amount of value, as has Titan. We've delivered a lot of value over the last sort of 18 months, and just haven't seen the value in the market yet. But like I said, I think delivering some of those de-risking studies for Dynasty will be really important for us, and I think it will certainly open up an entire new audience for us out of potentially North America and some of those institutional funds that we're yet to quite get on the register. So I think we're very close with that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, Mel, that's all we've got time for today. If we've missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases, and we will have a copy of this presentation online in the coming days. But thank you all again. We look forward to hosting you next time.
Thanks, Jane.